you're after a budget-friendly ute, you do have to be cautious, particularly around some areas, including resale value. Resale on one of these GWM Cannon utes is going to be lower than some of the more established rivals from Japan or built in Thailand. Not my opinion, that's just facts. But you also got to be wary of some things like long-term reliability. There's just not much information out there yet because these are still relatively new models compared with Tritons, D-Maxes, Hiluxes, and so on. I've just spent a week with this one. It's the Cannon-L twin cab chassis. And yeah, it is definitely growing on me. I like the color of this example. I know that's not important, but it just has a sort of refined look about it. I also like these 18-inch alloy wheels. They're wrapped in highway terrain Cooper tires. There are some annoyances and some proper negatives, which I'll go over in a minute, but you can't ignore the price. This starts from just under $44,000. It's between $15,000 and $20,000 or even $25,000 less than some of the established rivals in this kind of top spec twin cab chassis form. What do I mean by twin cab chassis? Well, you'll notice the body work stops behind the rear door there, and beyond that, it's just the chassis. So it's pretty much up to you if you want to fit a aluminium tray. GWM does offer a genuine tray like on this example, but you don't have to go with the GWM item. You can opt for your own custom tray setup, including with drawers or whatever storage units in the back. There's nothing wrong with the genuine tray that I can see. It's got a pretty simple lever control system. It doesn't have any tie down points or anything like that. It does have a nice security net or a safety net at the front there, which does intrude or does impede on rear visibility, which I'll show you in a minute. You've got some anchor posts there so you can stack things a bit like a roof rack. And it's got some tie rails on the sides, but only at the back. I've seen some setups like this that the rail extends to the front here as well, which is helpful because if you've got something in the right at the front of the tray, like a esky or whatever, you can tie it down to the front point there. I mean, you can loop things through the back, I suppose, and hook things around. But yeah, some of them have a nice little extended rail there as well. This example does have a rear view camera as well. It's a bit dirty, but you do have to be cautious because that camera is almost under or behind where the tray actually sticks out. I've had situations where I've parked this in an underground car park and backed it up against the wall, and on the monitor inside it showed, yeah, there's a little bit of distance there. The beeper is going off, the parking sensors are going off, I mean, but you don't realize that the tray actually protrudes out and you can't see it above the view on the rear view camera monitor. But yeah, there are some areas that have just, yeah, you can tell that GWM doesn't have the experience. Not necessarily the quality. The interior is really nice. I'll go over it in a second. The powertrain, it lacks a bit in power and torque, but also it's not very efficient. So the official fuel consumption rating is 9.4, which is quite high, especially when you consider it's only a 2-litre engine producing 120 kilowatts. Usually when you sacrifice power, you get economy. Whereas in this case, you're not getting economy and you're not getting power. So it's kind of, it just shows to me that the engineering is not quite up to the level of some of the established rivals. But there are some other areas which are a little bit questionable as well. So on this example, now I don't know if this is standard or if this is a press car, so it doesn't come with the proper locking cap, but this cap is not locked. And I'll just show you. I'll lock the doors. So the key's here. I'll put it over here actually, just so you know. Definitely locked. The key's on the ground. It's definitely locked, but I can walk up to this cap and just undo it and access the fuel, which I don't know if that's still a problem these days, but it means that someone could come along and siphon fuel out of your tank. There's probably, or maybe a one-way valve sort of system where you can't get a hose down in there, maybe, I don't know, but it just feels like that should be a lockable cap. Every other car that I've driven has a lockable cap. In fact, I think it was brought in the 60s or 70s when you used to open the flap on the paneling first and then access the cap via a key. Correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe GWM offers a lockable cap that you can get there as an accessory. Maybe this is just a press car and it's got some temporary cap there, I don't know, but just seems like that's not normal. And then inside, yeah, it's a nice interior, it really is, especially for this price range. Some of the areas are a little bit cheap, but that's what you'd expect for something that is pretty much at the lowest end of the price point in this market segment. But the dash is mostly scratchy plastic. All the doors, but the door trim down here, it's got a soft sort of leather style of trim. More plastic, textured trim around the power window switches. But at least it's going to be hard wearing. You're not going to be scuffing. You know, you don't want this leather material, for example, down here, because you're going to have work boots and so on scuffing up against that. That's going to rip and tear pretty easily, if it was down there. Likewise, the steering wheel, it feels like it's leather. It could be real leather, I don't know, but it's stitched. You can see that. But it feels very tough and hard wearing. You can get some dirty hands and grind it into that, and it's not going to wear out too quickly. A big T-type gear selector, very easy to select gears, intuitive. It's got a button on the side there so you know what's going on, and then a P button on the top. But no wireless phone charger in the front there. You do have a couple of USB ports, and then a couple of cup holders and a little tray there for your phone or whatever. It does have a center console storage box there as well, which kind of goes in forward. So if you lose things down the front, like as in this way, it's hard to get them out, but at least you've got a bit of storage. And up on the top, you do have a tray here, but it's just plastic. I don't know what you'd put there. It pretty much would fall out straight away. They're better off just making that drop down a little bit more so it is usable. I mean, you can put some receipts or a cheeseburger or something up there, I guess, and it would stay for a little drive or while you're parked. Once you're inside, the comfort in the front here, it's okay. The seats aren't that supportive. They've got a little bit of side bolstering on the upper sections here, but nothing much on the lower section. The driving position is okay, again, but it doesn't have a tilt and reach adjustable steering column. It only goes up and down. It doesn't pull out or go in, which does limit the overall adjustability. I can find a reasonable driving position. It just feels like sometimes I'm sitting kind of too far forward. My arms are, I don't know, not the right ratio to my legs or something like that, but it just feels like I want to be a bit further back, but be able to pull the steering wheel out closer. Because down below, my legs are pretty bent, and in fact, my under thigh there is not actually supported by the seat because it's just bent up a bit. If they just fit a reach adjustable steering column, it would solve a lot of the problems. It does have fully electric adjustment, including up and down, so you can, really raise yourself up if that's what you want. And then visibility out the front is pretty good. This A-pillar is quite thick though. I don't know what's going on there, but it kind of, there's my sort of eyesight. You can see between the mirror and the pillar a little bit, but not that much. But because the pillar is quite thick, I don't know, it just seems like there is a bit of a blind spot there. It'd be good if that mirror was mounted a bit lower down or further back, just to spread that gap between the pillar and the mirror. But forward visibility is great. And then, around the back, you do have limited visibility because of that netting, but also because of that center seat headrest. You can take it off, obviously. But even with it low, I find it's hard to see who's behind you just because of a lot going on. Not exactly a criticism to the GWM, because any twin cab chassis ute with a tray on the back is going to be pretty similar. But then you've also got to keep in mind that tray at the back does limit your visibility around on the side mirror too. So you can't really see who's behind you very clearly because of that bar coming down the side there. It just blocks your view. And then in the back, good amount of leg room. You've got multiple charging ports, including an Australian socket down there, 220 volt, max 120 watts by the looks of it. And a USB port as well. There's no center armrest to flip down. But it is good that this has a folding forward rear bench here. So you can tie the baby seat up through 2 different points. And you've got your jack and so on underneath. Space in the back is good. I've got plenty of leg room. That's my normal seat position. So even if I was a bit taller, including in the back here, my legs would be a little bit more forward, but that seat would be also a little bit further back, but still plenty of room, I think. It's probably one of the most spacious in this specific sort of mid-size class, without going to the American pickup trucks and even without going to that GWM Alpha ute. You've got a couple of grab handles as well, including up the top and on the pillar, and climate vents. Map pockets, or whatever you call these, pockets on the backs of the front seats on both seats. And under the bonnet, the 2-litre turbo diesel 4-cylinder, 120 kilowatts, 400 newton meters. 400 newton meters is pretty good. Even by today's standards. 450 is kind of the benchmark or the standard, but 400 is not too bad. It weighs 2,100 kilograms. So it's pretty much as heavy as most of the rivals, maybe slightly below. But yeah, the power to weight ratio is not very good compared with most rivals, and it is a little bit slow, as you'll see in the upcoming performance test. Fuel economy is the main drawback though, and emissions too. This emits 246 grams per kilometre, which is pretty high. A lot of the rivals are around 220. Some of them even dip down, like the Navara is 213. 246 just seems way too high, especially considering it is a comparatively small capacity engine with not much power, again, compared with those rivals. We'll go for a drive now. I'll go on a bit of a winding road, test out the ride quality. Compared with the XSR, I tested the XSR variant, I don't know, about 6 months ago or something, and the front suspension was what I would call terrible. It just kept bottoming out, just didn't feel right at all. This, after spending a week with it and various conditions and so on, it's actually pretty good. It's firm, it's jiggly in the back, but that's what you want for a vehicle like this. There is such a thing as a better balance in terms of being able to offer heavy duty capability and providing comfort. 3-ton towing capacity in this one, which is not the highest in its class. So yeah, it's just, I don't know why it's so firm, but again, I would rather have the firm setup over that XSR, which at least at the front was just way too soft. This feels like it's more rugged and robust. We'll do some off-roading as well, just to see what it's like. This does come with a full-time four-wheel drive system, which has its advantage because you can drive on the tarmac with the safety and security of all-wheel drive, whereas a lot of the rivals don't offer that. The Triton and the V6 Ranger does, and the Amarok. Whereas all the other ones, if you flick it into a four-wheel drive, you're basically locking the front and rear axles together, which is going to cause problems if you drive on dry tarmac. I guess that does go to some length explaining the high fuel consumption and emissions being full-time four-wheel drive. Okay, first of the annoyances. So when you come to a traffic light or an intersection or whatever, come to a stop, the cameras automatically come on. Now that's, you know, okay, but where's the X button to get rid of it? You can't remove it at all, and you can't even adjust the volume. It doesn't work, nothing works, none of the buttons work, except for in relation to the actual camera view. That I find extremely frustrating. So the other day I was driving in the city with my maps up, connected to Apple CarPlay, and the maps are showing there. I come to an intersection, and that just goes off. And it will also come on automatically if you get close to a car or a gutter or whatever as you're coming up to the intersection. So right when I'm coming up to an intersection, there might be two, you know, a left-hand turn and a right-hand turn. I'm looking at the screen, the maps disappear, and this comes up, and I need to figure out, do I need to go left and then right, or is it left then right, or something like that. Anyway, it was very frustrating, and I couldn't get rid of it. There's options here, AVM, auto activate, I've got that off, I don't know what that is, but there's nothing obvious that stands out to say, can I turn that off? I just find that really annoying. The second annoyance is when you're driving along, this 4-axis pad here doesn't do anything. There's a little display screen, a digital screen in the middle, which does offer different display options, which I'll get to in a second, but right now, as you're driving along, these buttons do absolutely nothing. If I stop the car, if I stop the vehicle, that camera comes on and they still do nothing. Now, as far as I can tell, as I said, I've spent a week with the car and I'm trying to figure out how to use this thing, but as far as I can tell, you push the OK button because it's showing the lane keep assist function. Push the OK button and then the digital speedo will come up, and then you can toggle through the different display modes like range and fuel economy and whatever. But if I continue driving, there's a little exclamation mark there in red, as you can see. If I continue driving, it disappears and goes back to the screen before, and you need to push OK to access this digital speedo or whatever you want, the trip computer again. Really annoying. The only way I've seen to get rid of it is, no, I can't even go into the touchscreen, so I've got to put it back into park, go into the vehicle settings, lane support system, lane keeping assist, turn that off, and then it disappears for good. Now I can go through and toggle the different display modes. It does have live tire pressure monitoring, which is awesome for this price range. And then the fuel economy there we just saw was 13.8, which is not very good. Most utes like this, you're averaging around 10 or 9, or some of them even dip into the 8s in the real world. This at 13.8, and I haven't even been doing, I've done the performance testing a few days ago, so it's got nothing to do with that. I've just been driving casually on roads like this, but also on the highway. And I think that's a very high rating. Those little annoyances can be fixed quite easily, but it just shows me that GWM doesn't have much experience building vehicles. Now, I know they've been around for a while in China, but compared with Mitsubishi, Toyota and so on, they are still a very young company in terms of building vehicles. Very easy to fix though, so with the next gen model, it should be able to iron out a lot of these wrinkles, including the ride quality. I think they need to spend a bit of attention on that because it is quite jiggly. I would rather it over a soft setup, as I said, but it is still pretty jiggly when unladen. If you load things in the back, it is going to soften up a bit. In terms of the driving, handling and the ride quality, it's easy to drive. It's actually a decent little truck to drive around in because, yeah, I don't know, it just feels rugged and ready for action. It's not very fast, as I said, it's not very powerful, but the engine hums along. It's not very noisy because it is only a 2-litre engine compared with, you know, a big capacity 2.8 or 3-litre D-Max. It's just humming along. It doesn't have that really clattering, harsh noise that a typical diesel might offer. You know, you could even fool someone and they wouldn't even know that this is a diesel, at some parts of the rev range anyway, if you're cruising along the highway, for example. The handling is okay. The tyres do start to stretch and peel a little bit if you push it too fast in the corners. Understandable for this style of vehicle. It's not a sports car, but it handles okay. The steering is a little bit heavy for my liking. Just feels a bit uncomfortable. Would just be nicer if it just folded in a little bit when you started to turn, or, you know, just eased in a little bit. Whereas this is just, yeah, it becomes very tensioned and tight as you turn in. But I've got a decent understanding of what's going on with those tyres, and I know where the vehicle is placed on the road. Body roll is fairly minimal. Lean it in, it kind of, yeah, stretches the tyres more than anything else. The front corner doesn't dip down like it did in that XSR variant. It just remains relatively flat. Even, you know, chucking it in a little bit fast, it still hangs on and the body remains flat. I'll just slow down a bit and show you the kickdown performance. Slow down to about 60, floor it. Yeah, like, it goes okay. Just if you were towing or carrying 5 passengers or 4 passengers, it'd start to be a bit concerning, especially if you're trying to overtake on a long uphill stint on the freeway. See, along a road like this, typical country road, lots of patchwork, rippled tarmac, it's jiggling all over the place. I wouldn't like to drive this long distance across a road like this, at least with nothing in the back. If you put something in the back, it's gonna become a bit more comfortable, as I said. Fit and finish is pretty good though. I do have a tripod and a booster seat that's rattling a little bit in the back, but everything else, yeah, the dash and the door cards and the center console, it's not squeaking or rattling, even though this vehicle is being really shaken around by that firm suspension. Aside from that engine, which just hums along, you don't really notice that it's a diesel. At speed or at 80 kilometers an hour, there's not too much wind noise around the mirror or anything like that. Even that tray on the back with the mesh grille and the poles that stick out and so on, it's pretty quiet and refined. Alright, we'll try some off-roading. I haven't been down here before. I don't think it's very serious or very long, but I think it ends just there. We'll see what it's like just along this rocky section. It's got decent ground clearance, and having the tray on the back obviously improves your departure angle. We'll go down some rocky section just here. See if it scrubs out. So it is good to have those cameras when you're off-roading, but like some GWM products, and I don't know what's going on here, but it needs a software update or something, but it's got that grey box around the car and it doesn't disappear, which I find really annoying, because I park on my driveway and I like to park right over to the left to give my wife enough room to get out, and there's no way of telling where your wheels are. You've got to just kind of guess where your wheel is in line with the body. But it needs to, yeah, even when you flip it around like that, you can't actually see where the wheels are making contact with the ground. Whereas some models I've seen, like the Tank 500, and the chassis disappears. You can have like a transparent setting, whereas this is not giving me that option. But yeah, having the full-time four-wheel drive system means you don't have to worry about switching it over into four-wheel drive. I think that's just a bit of a dead end, but we might as well see if we can get up here. Yeah, like it's not spinning excessively and it's not scrubbing the bottom. So you could definitely take this on a nice adventure, camping trip or something like that. That's pretty steep up there. Probably doesn't look like it on camera, but you wouldn't get a normal SUV up that. Check out the little rocks over here again. I might have a look down there. No, that's a bit too... That's not really a track, it's just some rocks. Alright, let's head out now to the private road and do some performance testing and see what it goes like.